So, good afternoon. Hope you're enjoying the lunch. I really had my eyes on some of that cake, so I hope they don't take it away before we end. But yeah, April and I, we're going to talk a little bit about myopia in the measurement and analytics space today. My name is GB Heidarsson. As Ken said, I'm the CEO of eDataSource, newly merged into SparkPost. And April?
Yeah, I'm a brand new employee to SparkPost. I started actually 7 weeks ago, and they said, can you present at Mediapost? And I said, sure. And actually my first day on the job, they said, oh, by the way, we just bought a company, eDataSource. And I've been a user of the eDataSource platform for many years, and so I was really excited about that. But I've been in this space a long time, and co-founder of Women of Email. So come find me for a sticker later.
Yeah, so I want to underline that. So April's a co-founder of Women of Email, which I have a lot of respect for. So we are truly in email royalty presence right here. Anyway, we wanted to, one of the things that we've done over the years, both companies, is that we've been very interested in trying to optimize email through better analytics. And that's why we think that this merger is in fact going to be a little bit of a game changer in the email space. And truly a better together situation that allows us to really start to marry the traditional deliverability metrics as well as the kind of AI networks that we've been deploying and panels to the actual sending analytics that SparkPost brings to the table. For the first time in the history of email, being able to really kind of close the loop on analytics. And that's something that a lot of us have been hoping for, me for about 20 years. So finally, we're getting there. So let's switch over. And if you watch that screen, you probably should watch this one. Anyway, just to kind of give you a little bit of the scope of what's happening here. So SparkPost is the sending platform for most of the premium ESPs. Also handles a lot of the commercial traffic, especially kind of in the pipeline sense of the internet, and in fact covers more than a third of all commercial sends worldwide. eDataSource on the other side with our ability to actually follow consumer metrics and consumer behavior in inboxes and our AI networks, we cover about 90% of all commercial sends in the world. And by marrying these two together, being able to actually verify sending data with the consumer side data and deliverability data brings us to a completely new level from an analytics perspective. And just to kind of hammer on that a little bit more, so the email sending, all the basics here, not only the probably most widespread enterprise platform, but also the newly introduced automatic AP warm-up that we put into place, the recipient validation, and the SparkPost Signals program, which is kind of the enhanced analytics from the sending perspective, come into the IntelliSeed platform from eDataSource, which is our AI network, and it's been trained to actually give back feedback that's within a 0.3% different from our panel feedback, updated every single day in real time to really give a true representation of what's going on out there. Spam trap monitoring, DMARC, of course, all authentication and whitelisting, and then bring that into a enterprise platform with a full services success team, and of course all the connections that you're used to from both platforms. GDPR and CCPA compliance, only deliverability company in the world that I know that does that from our perspective. And of course, the best-in-class uptime and SLAs. And April.
So I'd like to start by talking about, I'd like to thank Mediapost for hosting this event in beautiful Park City. How many of you love this location? It's beautiful, it's stunning. And based on my introduction, you probably know I'm a little bit of a nerd. I think we're all nerds, right? And so before I came out to Park City, I looked up the history of the town. I wanted to know a little bit more about it. And it was no surprise what I discovered. The town was founded, like many amazing ski towns in the US, it was founded because of the discovery of precious metals. And here it was silver. And so the miners back in the day, they were using, they were panning for silver, similar to what you would do for gold, using pickaxes. Any of you who are Western film fans, you've seen, the old railroad carts, the old rusty carts that they were pushing. And mining today is actually a lot more sophisticated. It's, the big trucks, they have their own special roads, conveyor systems, drills, and I think a lot of us are kind of like the miners in that our sole job as email marketers is to drive revenue and engagement for our companies, to find the silver. I think the challenge that we're facing, though, is that we're using tools and systems from 20 years ago. And so it's much like the pans and the pickaxes, and I think that's why email just feels so hard. How many of you think email is really hard? And you struggle to fill positions because people just don't know how to do it. It's intimidating. And so we have new challenges, though, even though we have these old tools that we're using. And those challenges come in the form of the micro conversions that are taking place within the email conversion funnel. So as most of you know, the email conversion funnel, it is inverted because our friends on the advertising side have already paid to get people to come to your website. You've developed these amazing opt-in forms that you've probably tested repeatedly. So they're already in your funnel. And the whole point of each email send, and even your program overall, is to drive them up the funnel to the conversion to get the silver. But what happens is, as consumers are moving up that funnel, they drop out. And they drop out because the consumer is, their behaviors are changing. People are checking email as a secondary activity. They're, getting a Starbucks coffee and they're checking it on their phone. It's a fluid part of our daily lives now. It's no longer this, I'm going to go check my email. We just do it all the time. And the other thing is the spam filters are changing. The ISPs are constantly changing the rules. They're evolving them in order to keep the spammers out, but also to ensure that the consumers or the recipients that have those inboxes are happy because they want more eyeballs on their properties to sell ads. And this is not going to come as any surprise. These are best practices. But in order to reach the inbox, which is what we're ultimately trying to do to engage that consumer and get those conversions, you need infrastructure and technology that's going to help you get past those spam filters. Because based on that prior slide, you saw the conversion funnel at the very bottom. It's actually the deliverability part. We're not even engaging people yet. But you also need those engagement best practices so you can move them further up the funnel. But one of the things that's happening today is we have some blind spots that are keeping us from finding our silver. And so what GB and I are going to talk about is a few of those blind spots. We actually came up with many, but we decided that you all probably want to go on to your activities today. So we kept it to 3, and GB's now going to talk about that first blind spot.
Well, maybe we should shut the door and take a couple of hours. What do you think?
Oh, let's lock them in.
Okay. Well, no. So deliverability, obviously, many of you know, has been my passion, really, for a long time. And we come at it from a little bit different perspective because we came from a very kind of strict strategic data monitoring discipline rather than, a testing mentality. And what we've kind of come into and where we've come at this is this confusion to a certain extent in the industry of what is delivery and what is deliverability and what is the difference between the two. And we still hear these differences and not a complete understanding of what delivery is and what deliverability is. But the underlying fact of it all is that if you're not delivering your email into the inboxes, nobody's going to see it. It doesn't matter how pretty it is. It doesn't matter how brilliant the subject line is. It doesn't even matter how fantastic optimization tools you have if it's not being seen. It's just not going to give you any revenue. And what is interesting is that I've been in email for about 20 years. And the amount of emails from a commercial email programs or emailers going to spam hasn't really changed all this much. We've optimized a hell of a lot of the sending practices. The ISPs have optimized the filtering and personalized those, but still about 1/5 of all emails are going to the spam folder. And we've had competitors that have hammered on this 20% number for a number of years. They look at it a little bit differently. What we're looking at here is actually, this is the good senders. These are the people that that are like you, that have gotten individuals to come into their own funnel. They're sending one-to-one. This is not the affiliate marketers. This is not the search. This is the actual one-to-one relationship B2C companies where 1/5 of the emails are going in there. For those that are not paying attention, during this time of year, this often jumps to about 40% because you're over-mailing, you're throwing everything at it except the kitchen sink, and performance actually goes down rather than going up as you're increasing it. I was having, in fact, a conversation yesterday with somebody that said, no, our delivery is in the high 90%. So after the conversation, I went back and I kind of looked at the statistics for this company, which we all actually know and love. And I found out that they were very respectable. They were at 90% in the inbox. But that's still leaving 10% on the table. And 90% on the inbox, well, that's good. That's not great. And we really need to start to get to great. For those that have, the standard opportunity here, the standard analytics here at 80%, the upside is not trivial. And in fact, we have another client of ours in the room, which I'm not able to mention, but and I can't use the numbers, unfortunately, because they're so bloody impressive. But needless to say, they ran out of inventory on the Black Friday weekend, and they ran out of space on the planes to move more inventory to the US, and had to reduce their email sends on Cyber Monday because they was that successful. And that was a change from Black Friday last year to Black Friday this year. Now you can probably blame it on the weather, but I think it's obviously a significant success in the inboxing that created this. And I'd say, as the last slide was kind of indicating at the bottom, you take an average retailer, 1% increase in delivery to the inbox can mean $1 million a year. So it doesn't really matter what tool you're using to optimize your email overall. If you're not focusing on deliverability, you're missing the silver. We had a case of a client actually that came on board a couple of months ago. They wrote about this on the internet, so because we can't close the doors and keep you for 2 hours, I'm not going to go through the case study. But needless to say, they came to us very puzzled. 4% open rates, and they were looking at the sender score that Validity has, 98%. So how can you have 4% open rate and 98% sender score? Well, sender score isn't necessarily measuring your deliverability. They may be measuring your delivery to a certain extent, but not your inbox delivery. They had 45% of all email going to the spam folder. Once they knew that, they could do something about it. But the problem here is that what you don't know really can hurt you.
Absolutely.
Now, what we all need a little bit more of, and where the successes come from, is what we call email intelligence. So this is the optimization analytics behind it all. You need to be tracking everything you need to do. You need to be tracking it in real time. You need to be able to respond to everything as it happens. This is every campaign, every ISP, every day, every hour, engagement, activity, and so on and so forth. You also need to understand when these metrics go down, why? What happened? What is the feedback from the ISP? What are the indications that you get in? And then, on top of that, what is the solution to that problem? You also need to be focusing a little bit further on your competitors. How can you benchmark with them? How can you beat them in the marketplace? What are they sending out? What are they doing that cancels your strategy? And how can you get back on the horse? How is their journey of their clients going on? Why is that better than yours? What can you do to change that? And then once you send, you need to do that strategically. reputation needs to be up on par. You need to make sure that all your infrastructure are up to par. Everything is fine-tuned, because without that, you're not going to get there. Whitelist accreditation can help, but still, this is up to you to make sure that all the 150, 200 variables in your send are actually fine-tuned and ready for the big moment of the fourth quarter.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about another blind spot. How many of you think clicks equal engagement? Or you equate your clicks to engagement? You think it's a trick question? I know there are more of you. Not always. Yes, clicks typically do lead you to think that your campaign has high engagement, but the unsubscribe, it sneaks in there. So most providers actually add the unsubscribe clicks into your overall click count, which I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Most of them do it. So what I recommend is to check with your ESP, find out how you're configured. I did a little kind of test with Women of Email last week, and people were like, I had no idea. So find out from your ESP what's going on, how you're configured, and if you can't change that, then you should actually add that to your calculation to back up those unsubscribes to get to your true clicks. And then the last and final, or the blind spot number 3, the final blind spot, is around unsubscribe rate. That's pretty straightforward, right? Yes, an unsubscribe is an unsubscribe, but when you're looking at it in terms of a rate, it can get a little bit tricky. So for example, this was a client that I used to work with. We had done a case with them in the past, and what we saw was that unsubscribe rates weren't varying very substantively from send to send. I mean, we're talking about 0.02, 0.04. I mean, these are like fractions of a percent when you have the ratios. And so what I recommend, don't take away your unsubscribe rate, you need that, but add another metric to your reports that looks at what I call disengagement rate, and have a denominator that's looking at those unique clicks. Because what happens is, if you change the denominator, or add another equation that has that denominator, the clicks as a denominator, using the same data I just showed you from a former client, you can actually spot some really true differences. So I feel like a lot of us are kind of doing forensics on our email program, and we're trying to dig in. And unsubscribes have always been maddening to me, because it's like, when you look at the rates, it's not that different. But when you have the clicks, it's just another way of looking at it, and then you can drill down and you can see, maybe this campaign wasn't the best, and maybe we shouldn't run it again. So we're here for the conference. We want to help you find your silver. So please come and talk to us and get your sticker from me. And I think GB has a few final words he'd like to say.
Yeah, well, thanks. So Tim, Morgan, Casey, stand up, guys. So, well, no Casey. Well, Casey's busy working, actually. Yes. So
where is that guy?
Talk to any of us. We can help you get there. Keep in mind, nobody has what we have. 90% of all commercial email in the world monitored, 37% of all the sends. 10 years plus, like a lot of pluses to those 10 years. I wish it was only 10 years. But experience in handling every problem in over 4,000 customers worldwide. Urge you to really get from the 20th century to the 21st. It really isn't worth spending a lot of time on random number generators anymore. So we want to bring you the facts.
Thank you.
Questions?
We have a couple of minutes. Anyone have any questions for these fine two people? Okay, let us know who you are, where you're from.
Greg at Launch Potato. So I know that Verizon came out with some changes regard to inbox filtering specifically, and I think in the article that came out, eDataSource was quoted in like trying to work with them to get that. Is there any update on that with Verizon blocking email intelligence seeds?
So the first indication came from a respected competitor of ours who kind of put things together a little bit maybe differently than the rest of us saw it. The update from that is that Verizon has no intention at all to interfere with what we do. What we do is helping good mailers get better, And that's really a common thread in everything that we do in organizations like MOG and other areas. We all want to get better. We all want to support the emailers that are doing the right thing and get rid of the other ones. So taking our AI network, which this was, and comparing that to bots that are actually destructive in the email space is an unfair and uncalled for comparison. And Verizon is completely with us on this.
Okay, right here.
I love what you have to say about the disengagement rate. I think that's, oh, sorry, Veronica from Western Metallurgy, and also Women of Email. I've never thought of it that way, and that makes a lot of sense because it seems like the unsubscribe rate really does kind of stays within that range of 0.02 to 0.05. Do you think there's also a correlation between the amount of sends and the amount of clicks? How do you kind of look at that number in correlation with the disengagement rate?
Yeah, so your clicks are typically, like, the higher the volume you have, the higher the actual number of clicks you have. But if you're not segmenting, we often see that percentage-wise your clicks go down even if you have high volume. So I think that's not an easy question to answer, but you know, I actually thought about maybe open rate would be a good way to look at that, but then as we all know, open rate is not a solid metric. Like, that could have been a whole presentation on its own, and most of you already know about all the problems with that. So I was like, I think, you know, a click is a click. I mean, sure, you have erroneous clicks, but so I think just taking those, you know, the clicks or the responses, you know, it makes it easier to just have something finite to tie into for your denominator. But I think it really depends. Yeah, I mean, higher volume sends are, yes, number-wise going to have higher clicks, but the click rate's probably going to decrease if it's not targeted.
Okay. Anyone else?